Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Town Board and Joint Plan Commission meeting on July 12th, 2018. I've got 6:31. I'd like to call the meeting to order and begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. And Madam Clerk, could you call the roll?
Commissioner Webb? Aye. Commissioner Ramirez? Here. Commissioner Stigler?
Here.
Chairman Merrick?
Aye, here.
Supervisor Fisher?
Here.
Supervisor Durr?
Here.
Supervisor Wolf?
Here.
Supervisor Raggi?
Here.
And Madam Clerk, have we met the open meeting law?
Yes, we have.
And did we note that Commissioner Flanagan is absent?
Correct.
As well as Commissioner Miller.
Correct.
And comment to the citizens' comments. The public hearing on Lilac Acres has been closed, so neither the petitioner nor the public is going to be allowed to give any further testimony regarding that issue, but feel free to speak on any other agendized item. Seeing none, we can move on to accounts payable. And in the amount of $100,183.67. Is there a motion?
Move we pay that amount.
And a second.
I'll second.
And Madam Clerk, a roll call vote, please.
Chairman Merrick?
Yes.
Supervisor Durr?
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher?
Aye.
Supervisor Raggi?
Aye.
Supervisor Wolf?
Aye.
Motion carries. On to 7, accessory building and waiver modification on the size and location for petitioner Michael Bonus Sr. Location is W253 South 5740 Crest Drive. Tax key is WAKT 1425019. Discussion by the Plan Commission and Town Board, and take it away, Planner Malarkey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The petitioner was in front of the Plan Commission and Board last month for a similar petition. The application has since been revised. The accessory building being proposed now is 26 feet by 32 feet for a total of 832 square feet. This building will be combined with the existing pool house in the property. As proposed now, the proposed accessory building meets all setback requirements, all offset requirements, and all size requirements. The Plan Commission would just need to determine that what's being proposed is compatible with the existing residents on the house. So no waivers are necessary at this time. If the Plan Commission chooses to recommend approval to the board, I have prepared a series of conditions, standard conditions, including the need to record a deed restriction on the property, so that's used for residential purposes only.
Thank you. And is the petitioner here this evening? Good evening. Any questions from the Plan Commission or Board for the planner or the petitioner? Commissioner Stigler.
The only question I have, you said you're going to paint the house now to match the garage and everything is going to be the same?
Yes.
Is there a time frame that you're going to have that all done, or?
By this fall, we have, I have colors if you need to see them. We're working on it, and as soon as it's built, everything will match. Getting a new roof on, and the roof on the garage will match the house too, because we're getting a new roof there. Everything will match.
So you're basically going to have a new house?
Yeah, on the outside.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, is there a motion from the Plan Commission?
I will move to recommend approval of the request with the conditions that have been provided by Planner Malarkey.
And a second.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. On to the Town Board. Is there a motion?
Move we accept the recommendation of the Plan Commission.
And a second.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. carries. On to 8, site plan of operation for Mark Wenzel, DBA Signs and Lines by Stretch. Location is W240 South 3990 Rockwood Circle. Tax keys WAKT 138-1999011. Planner Malarkey.
Thank you. The petitioner is requesting approval of a site plan of operation amendment for the property. There's already an existing approved site plan of operation. What they're looking to do is to resurface and restripe the parking lot, to install a new internally illuminated freestanding sign adjacent to State Trunk Highway 164, which will include 3 lights that would be mounted to that to light the parking lot, and then also install a new light pole on the south property line to light the parking lot as well. And that pole will have 2 lights mounted at a height of about 25 feet. They're also going to put some new LED lights around the perimeter of the building to light the parking lot in the area directly around the building. The business itself installs graphics on cars, trucks, box trucks, semi-tractors, and semi-trailers. My comments on the proposal, the site plan that was approved in 1999 will remain the same, except for a few conditions. That site plan at the time was approved for 4 employees. They're now asking for 13 total employees, 12 full-time and 1 part-time employee. And at the time, the plan of operation didn't designate the number of vehicles, but the approval, the site plan of operation approval, required 8 parking stalls at the time. The current proposal for installs, 8 stalls for installs. The current proposal is estimating 10 to 12 vehicles on site at any one time for installs. So in terms of parking requirements, the previous one, or the existing one, required 3 paved stalls for employees and visitors and 8 paved stripe stalls for vehicle storage for installs. Right now, with the new resurfacing and restriping, they're going to install 29 parking spaces, which includes 1 handicap accessible stalls, and then it also includes 6 stalls for semi-truck and trailer parking. In terms of the ordinance itself, we require 1 space per each employee during any 12-hour period, and then 1 space per 300 square feet of office space. So they'll have 13 employees, which require 13 spaces, and then they have 1,300 square feet of office space. That requires 4 spaces. That's 17 spaces. In addition to that, they'll have 10 to 12 vehicles that would be on site at any one time for installs. That's a total of about 27 to 29 spaces. They're proposing to stripe 29 spaces. And in addition, there's also paved area on the site that won't be striped that would suffice for any overflow of installs itself. So it's my opinion that there's enough parking on site as proposed for their plan of operation. In terms of signage, they're proposing a new internally illuminated sign adjacent to State Trunk Highway 164. The current requirements for freestanding signs are that they will not exceed 25 feet, shall be set back a minimum of 10 feet from all lot lines unless modified by the town board, shall not exceed 200 square feet of sign area per side, 400 total, and must be illuminated in accordance with section 13-2-15H. As proposed, the sign will be on 2 8-inch posts. It will not exceed 25 feet in height. It will measure 25 feet to the tallest point. It'll have copy on both sides. It'll have 48 feet per side, and will be internally illuminated with LED lighting. So as proposed, the sign meets the sign requirements. It's just we need to mount it to the new sign adjacent to 164. These will be mounted at a height of 20 feet for parking lot lighting. These will be downward-facing lights, cutoff lights, 300-watt LED bulbs, and tilted to sort of a 20-degree tilt. They're also proposing 2 lights mounted to the new pole that will be 5 feet off the southern lot line. That pole will be a height of 25 feet. Again, downward-facing cutoff lights, 300-watt LEDs at a 20-degree tilt. And then 9 new LED lights around the perimeter of the building at a height of about 10 feet. These are downward-facing cutoff lights, 90 watts, LEDs at a 45-degree tilt. There is a bit of an issue here with the lighting as proposed. Our ordinance basically permits cutoff luminaires as they're being proposed to a maximum height of 28 feet with a maximum of 3-foot candles at the lot lines. The height is not an issue here. It's the measurement of the foot candles at the perimeter of the site. They've provided a photometric plan along with their application. This is the second photometric plan to try to meet the foot candles as best as possible. It doesn't quite meet it. The light that is along the southern lot line shows about 9-foot candles directly below the lamp itself, which is a few feet off the lot line. We allow 3-foot candles. The signage, the lighting associated with the signage along Highway 164 shows about 11-foot candles near the east property line as well, and again, we allow 3. In addition, cutoff luminaires are required to be offset at least 10 feet from the property line. The light that's mounted near the south property line doesn't quite meet that 10-foot offset for the actual light fixture itself. The petitioner is aware that it doesn't quite meet the requirements of the ordinance. I have included a provision in here that allows a little flexibility depending on the Plan Commission and the board's take on this. Section 13-2-4A of the code allows modifications to the site plan and plan of operation, principles and standards as determined appropriate by the Plan Commission and Board in response to unusual, unique, or existing site conditions. That impede full compliance, provided such modifications are otherwise consistent with the purpose and intent of the ordinance of promoting health, safety, and general welfare of the citizens by preserving and enhancing the town's natural environment, facilitating the creation of an attractive and harmonious community, protecting and enhancing property values, and encouraging the appropriate use and orderly development of land. So the Plan Commission and Board should determine whether the lighting as proposed is appropriate for modification of the site plan, plan of operation principles, and standards. The applicant has also submitted with the application signatures from all surrounding property owners in support of the lighting and the project itself. So consider that in the decision as well. If the Plan Commission chooses to grant that modification, I have approved or prepared a series of conditions, standard conditions outlined in my report.
Thank you. And I see Steve is here from Signs and Lines. Is there a motion from the Plan Commission?
I will move to recommend approval of the application with the conditions that are included in the staff recommendation, and I so move.
And a second.
No second it.
Discussion? Questions for the petitioner and or the planner? All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. And on to the town board. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the recommendation of the Plan Commission.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On to 9. Accessory building for petitioner Joe Harridges. I hope I got that right. Location is W236 South 4631 Whispering Hills. Tax key is WAKT 1387008. And Planner Malarkey, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The petitioner is requesting to construct a 24-foot by 30-foot accessory building that's 720 square feet in total to be used for storage of personal items. The petitioner has provided color renderings of the garage and photographs of the existing home showing similar materials, which is LP smart siding, same trim, same windows as the main home. The Plan Commission and Board reviews all applications for accessory buildings in excess of 600 square feet, so that's why it's in front of you today. The proposed building meets all setback requirements, all offset requirements, height provisions, etc. The Plan Commission should just determine if the proposed structure is in compliance with the compatibility provisions in the ordinance. If the Plan Commission chooses to approve, I have included a series of conditions, again including the condition that a deed restriction be recorded on the property, giving notice that the use of the accessory building is for residential purposes only.
Thank you. Is there a motion from the Plan Commission?
So move to approve with conditions outlined by our planner.
And a second.
Second.
And is the petitioner here this evening? Good evening. And any questions for the petitioner and or Planner Malarkey? favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And to the town board, do we have a motion?
Move we accept the recommendation of the Plan Commission.
And a second.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On to 10, conditional use permit for the Ken Miller Business is Lilac Acre Farms LLC. Location is South 47 West 23045 Lonsdale Road. Tax key is part of WAKT 137999001 and WAKT 1397999. If there are any members of the Plan Commission and or Town Board that feel that they have a conflict due to predispositions or other ethical conflicts, now would be the time that you would recuse yourself from the discussion.
Mr. Chairman, may I speak?
Yes.
I believe at the last proceeding you directed Attorney Macy to render an opinion as to whether I should be silenced or not tonight. Is there an opinion in that regard?
We would have to take a break and you and I could talk about that.
So you're not prepared to respond to that tonight?
I am not.
Okay. Well, then let's, I guess, go at it this way. During the public hearing for Lilac Acres, which began on May 10th, you, Chairman Merrick, reminded everyone in this room at that time of the need to follow the law. Your words were well chosen. I took them to heart. Here at the town of Waukesha, I have taken an oath of office several times, and each time I have been asked by the town clerk if I will follow the law or words to that effect. Each time I have responded, I will. Regarding the conditional use request for Lilac Acres, the matter at hand, as I have personally indicated both verbally and in writing, I have concluded that we are not following the law. For that reason, assuming that the matter at hand is going forward tonight, as a matter of conscience, conviction, and personal integrity, I cannot and will not participate in the proceedings. Momentarily, I am going to vacate this chair and take a seat in the audience. Clerk Nicholas, please make sure that the minutes of the meeting reflect that I vacated my seat and took a seat in the audience of my own volition voluntarily at 6:50 p.m. Thank you.
Thank
Can I
you.
ask a question before Supervisor Fisher removes himself?
Sure.
So that I can help make my decision. Do you have an opinion from a licensed attorney that has determined that the actions that we took were illegal?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Planner Malarkey.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to have to do the same thing. I was going to recuse myself and not vote at all. If this is the time and the place you want to do that, I guess I have reservations about how this all happened myself.
That's fine.
I can't go by my conscience, and my conscience just can't go ahead with this. I'm not arguing this point. What I'm arguing is Act 67 and how it came down and all of that, and I just can't, I don't believe in that, and I got problems with that.
Call your legislature.
I will.
We've got nothing to do with that.
I understand that,
We are-
but
we
yet
are here
we're
to
the ones that
enforce-
are being affected by it here.
We're here to enforce the laws that have been put on the books.
And I can't enforce laws that I don't believe in.
You get to choose which laws you enforce now? You can step down. Go ahead. going to take a 5-minute recess. All right, fastest 5 minutes in history. Back to Planner Malarkey.
So we've been over this a couple times, and I've done the staff report at a previous meeting. Do you want me to re-summarize the entire staff report or go over the decision worksheet?
I think probably we're going to head right to the worksheet unless council has different advice.
Sure. So since this is new to everybody with Act 67 and how conditional uses are heard and acted upon by municipalities, we had a conditional use at the last meeting that we went through the previous worksheet that we developed, and it was admittedly a little clumsy. We tried to fine-tune it for Lilac Acres event venue. So what you have in front of you is a revised worksheet, and what it includes are all of the conditions that are in the ordinance. So the second page shows specific conditional use criteria for an event venue that were established as part of that conditional use. The page after that is the site plan of operation criteria. The third page are the general conditional use criteria in the code. The fourth page are my conditions, the planner's staff report conditions, those that weren't included in the conditions that preceded. So some of them are redundant based on the event venue conditions, unless they were more specific, and then I included them in here. And I also did not include general conditions, so like the general conditional use conditions that apply to every conditional use are not in here. And then the last page are basically the motions. So the big thing that changed with the new decision worksheet is, if you go to the second page, there's 4 columns now. So for each of the conditions that are established here, the first column is we're asking the question of the Plan Commission and the board, is the condition requirement applicable? And if you look at the bottom of the page, column A is further explained. So what we mean by that is the condition or requirement applicable? Specifically, is it related to the purpose of the ordinance, based on substantial evidence, reasonable, and to the extent practicable, measurable? If the answer is no to that first column for any of the conditions, that condition, it fails the test, and the condition has to either be removed or revised to satisfy the test of that criteria. The second column is, has the applicant provided substantial evidence? And for further clarification, this means, does the town of Waukesha find that the applicant has provided substantial evidence to show that they meet or agree to meet that particular condition or requirement? The third column, has substantial evidence to the contrary been provided? Meaning, has substantial evidence been provided showing that the applicant cannot meet the condition or requirement? And then finally, is the condition or requirement met? Does the town of Waukesha find, based on substantial evidence presented, that the applicant meets or has agreed to meet this condition requirement? So we'll go through each and every one of these conditions, and then we'll go through these 4 columns, and then first of all figure, does it apply? Is the condition applicable? And whether or not evidence has been met and they can meet the requirement. At the end of this, if we find that the Plan Commission has found that column D that the requirement is not met in column D for any of the conditions that are deemed applicable, the Plan Commission cannot recommend approval of the conditional use permit. And then the board, if they find if any of the conditions in column D are not met, they will not be able to approve the conditional use permit either. So the first step for each of the conditions is to determine if it's applicable, related to the purpose and intent of the ordinance based on substantial evidence, reasonable, practicable, and measurable. So for each of those. If you find it's not, it has to either be stricken or revised. Any questions before we start?
No,
Okay.
not for me anyway.
So we have two in the packet, that's one for the.
But certainly, if you're on both the Plan Commission board, we'll have to do this twice.
The plan commission can do it first, town board's just listening, and then the town board's gonna do it afterwards. And I would remind everybody that you can't answer yes to both B and C, correct, Sean?
Correct. So if you answer yes to B, you're going to answer no to C.
You just can't have a
Because if the applicant's already provided evidence that they can meet the condition as stated, or they will meet the condition as stated, and that's your understanding of it, you can't then say that the opponent or the opposition has provided evidence that they can't. So if you believe they can, or they've presented evidence they can, you can't agree that the opposition also presented evidence, substantial evidence.
So then let's start with page 2.1. Food shall be prepared and served by a professional catering service.
Actually, the one right above it.
Right above that, the lead-in.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry you got that in there. An event venue is a location, i.e. a premise, lot, building, and or structure, which is rented to a third parties for events, i.e. weddings, fundraisers, meetings, conferences, birthday celebrations, and or anniversaries. And so the first question is that condition applicable? And I would say yes. Is there any disagreement from Plan Commission members? Has the applicant provided substantial evidence that that condition is met? And I would say yes, and is there any disagreement? And then C, has any substantial evidence been presented to the contrary? My answer would be no. Would there any disagreement? And is the condition requirement met? I would say yes. Any disagreement? Hearing none. We'll move on to 1. Food and beverage shall be prepared and served by a professional catering service. I heard, is that condition requirement applicable? My answer is yes. No disagreement. Has the applicant provided substantial evidence that the catering service would provide and prepare all the food? And my answer is yes. Had there been any substantial evidence to the contrary been provided? My answer is no. And in absence of any verbal communication from Commissioner Webb, I'm going to assume that you're in agreement on all of these.
yes.
Okay. And has the condition been met? And my answer for that would be yes.
Yes. I think it would go faster if both of you just responded,
okay,
whether you
okay.
agree or disagree.
Okay,
And then he can move on quickly to the next one.
great.
Okay. Beverages will be sold and served by the owner, operator of the venue, or a professional catering service. Is that condition requirement applicable? My answer would be yes.
Yes.
And has the applicant provided substantial evidence that he will be doing that? My answer would be yes.
Yes.
And has there been any substantial evidence to the contrary been provided? My answer would be no.
No.
And has that condition requirement been met? My answer would be yes.
Yes.
An event shall not exceed 300 guests. Is that condition requirement applicable to this petition? My answer is yes.
Yes.
And has the applicant provided substantial evidence that he would not exceed 300 guests? And my answer to that is also yes.
Yes.
And has substantial evidence to the contrary been provided? And my answer would be that there is none.
No.
And has the condition or the requirement been met? My answer would be yes.
Yes.
On to number 4. Only one event will take place at one time. Is the conditional requirement applicable in this instance? My answer is yes.
Yes.
And has the applicant provided substantial evidence that he would have only one event at a time? I would answer that yes.
Yes.
And has any substantial evidence to the contrary been presented that there would be more than one event at a time? I would say there has not been.
No.
And has that condition or requirement been met? My answer would be yes.
Yes.
The assembly of temporary tents, canvas, plastic, etc. is prohibited, and that condition requirement is applicable to this petition. My answer would be yes.
Yes.
And has the applicant provided substantial evidence that no assembly of temporary canvas, tents, plastic will be used? My answer to that is yes.
Yes.
Has any substantial evidence been provided to the contrary? My answer to that would be no.
No.
And the condition, in my opinion, has been met.
Yes.
On to a second paragraph or second set. The location, building, and site plan of operation shall be submitted for approval for section 13-2 sub 4. Yeah, you
Go to page 3. So we broke out the site plan of operation criteria on page 3.
And was your intent to take those in this order and then go back onto page 2?
Let's go to page 3 and then back to page 2. Yes.
Okay. For the purpose of promoting compatible development, stability of property values, and to prevent impairment of or depreciation of property values, no person shall commence any use or erect any structure or addition, with the exception of single-family and two-family dwellings, accessory buildings, or related structure, without first obtaining the approval of the Town Plan Commission, Town Board of detailed site plan of operation, architectural plans as set forth in this section. Town shall review the site, existing and proposed structures, architectural plans, neighboring uses, utilization of landscaping and open space, parking areas, driving locations, loading and unloading in the case of commercial and industrial uses, highway access, traffic generation and circulation, drainage, sewage, and water systems in the proposed operation. Plan Commission and Town Board will review the architectural principles and the architectural landscaping, exterior lighting, exterior site usage, standards of each development, review application to determine if it conforms, to the intent of these principles and standards. Modification of the principles and standards may be permitted as determined appropriate by the Plan Commission and Town Board. In response to unusual, unique, or existing site conditions that impede full compliance, provide such modifications that are otherwise consistent with the purpose and intent of this ordinance of promoting health, safety, and general welfare of the citizens by preserving and enhancing the town's natural environment, facilitating the creation of an active, harmonious community, protecting and enhancing property values, and encouraging the appropriate use of orderly development of land. And question 1 is the site plan application per section 13-2 sub 4 complete and meets the intent of the ordinance? That condition is applicable, and I would say that it does.
Yes.
Yes.
And has the applicant provided substantial evidence that it does? My answer would be yes.
Yes.
And has there been contrary evidence provided? And my answer to that would be there has not been.
No.
And lastly, is the condition requirement yet? In my opinion, it has been.
Yes.
The plan of operation for section 13-2-4 sub D is complete and meets the intent of the ordinance. That is an applicable requirement. My answer would be yes.
Yes.
Has the applicant provided substantial evidence that it meets the intent? My answer would be yes.
Yes.
Has substantial evidence to the contrary been provided? My answer to that would be no.
No.
And lastly, is that condition met? And my answer to that would be yes.
Yes.
The general architectural principles and the criteria as established in section 13-2-4 sub E and sub F are met. My answer, that is an applicable requirement, and I believe that it is an applicable requirement.
Yes.
And has the applicant provided substantial evidence to the same? My answer would be yes.
Yes.
And has there been substantial evidence to the contrary that those criteria have not been met? My answer would be no.
No.
And in my opinion, the condition has been met.
Yes.
Landscape standards requirement for 13-2-4 sub G are met. Is that condition requirement applicable? And the answer from my perspective is yes.
Yes.
And has the applicant provided substantial evidence that it has been completed? And that would be in the site plan and plan of operation, I would say yes.
Yes.
And has there been substantial evidence to the contrary? My answer to that would be no.
No.
And the condition or requirement has been met in my opinion.
Yes.
Exterior lighting standards per 13-2 sub 4 sub H are met. That is a condition that is applicable. My answer would be yes.
Yes.
And has the applicant provided substantial evidence that that has been met? My answer would be yes.
Yes.
And has there been contrary evidence provided? My answer to that would be no.
No.
And in my opinion, the condition and requirement has been met.
Yes.
Lastly, 6, exterior site usage standards per 13-2-4 sub I. That is a condition that is applicable to this petition. My answer would be yes.
Yes.
And the applicant has provided substantial evidence. My answer would be yes.
Yes.
Has there been substantial evidence to the contrary regarding exterior site usage? My answer would be no.
No.
And I believe that that condition has been met.
Yes.
We'll go back to the second section on page 2. The location, building, site plan, plan of operation shall be submitted for approval per section 13-2-4. I'm sorry. No such use shall be permitted on lot less than 20 acres in area. That is a required in this application. My answer is yes.
Yes.
Has the applicant provided substantial evidence that he has met that? My answer would be yes. Has there been substantial evidence to the contrary? My answer would be no.
No.
And I would believe that that condition and requirement has been met.
Yes.
No such use shall be allowed on a parcel except as may front but directly upon an arterial or collector street. In the event venue access to the parcel shall be from the arterial or collector street. That is an applicable condition, and I believe it has been met.
Yes.
There is substantial evidence to that. My answer would be yes.
Yes.
I do not believe there has been any contrary evidence to that effect,
No.
and I believe that that requirement has been met.
Yes.
No such use shall be permitted unless served by 1, a private on-site waste system and a private on-site well, or a municipal sewer system, which doesn't apply in this case, or a private combination of private system and municipal system that is applicable to this petition. My answer would be yes.
Yes.
Has the applicant provided substantial evidence that he is going to put on an on-site waste system and a private on-site well? My answer would be yes.
Yes.
There has been no, in my opinion, substantial evidence to the contrary provided, so my answer would be no.
No.
And I believe that that condition has been met. My answer would be yes.
Yes.
No building structure and or use shall be closer than 100 feet to the lot line of an adjoining lot in a district permitting a residential use. That is applicable to this petition, so my answer is yes.
Yes.
And has the applicant provided substantial evidence to that effect? My answer is yes, he did.
Yes.
Has there been contrary evidence submitted? And my answer to that is no.
No.
And I believe that the condition has been met, and so my answer is yes.
Yes.
Off-street parking shall be provided in accordance with section 13-2-13. That is a applicable requirement to the petition. My answer would be yes.
Yes.
Has the applicant provided substantial evidence with regards to the off-street parking? My answer to that is yes.
Yes.
Has substantial evidence to the contrary been provided? My answer to that would be no.
No.
And I believe that the conditions have been met with regards to 13-2-13. My answer is yes.
Yes.
Live amplified music should not exceed 75 decibels at the property line. The Town of Waukesha Plan Commission Board may prohibit music being piped, amplified, or permitted outside of a building and or structure if the noise level becomes an issue. Yes, that is applicable to this petition. My answer is yes.
Yes.
Has the applicant provided substantial evidence that he will not be in excess of those decibels? My answer is yes.
Yes.
Has there been substantial evidence to the contrary? My answer to that is no.
No.
And my answer is the condition been met, and my answer to that is yes.
Yes.
Lastly, the term event venue does not apply to private clubs, private commercial, recreational facilities, theaters, dance halls, or other amusement places and restaurants. Is that condition applicable?
relate to the purpose of the ordinance based on substantial evidence, reasonable and extent, practical, measurable. So that's what you're looking at. So it may not apply to this situation because they have to prove they're not doing any of those. That was the intent. Because you have zoning for those other things, they can't do those under an event venue, and that's why that's why you put the condition in there. So I think it definitely is applicable because that's why you put it there.
Okay.
Is to distinguish those types of activities. Now, did he prove by substantial evidence that he's not going to do those things?
And my answer to that would be yes.
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 Has there been substantial evidence to the contrary? That would be a theater, dance hall, amusement place, or a restaurant? My answer to that is no.
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 And has that condition been met? And my answer to that would be yes.
Yes.
Sean, could you have made this any longer? On to page 4 of 6. The determination of a conditional use shall be based on a consideration of the following. These have been rewarded, the parts of this have been rewarded, short in italic, to be consistent with the format of the decision matrix in the columns to the right.
One of the issues we had at the previous meeting was some double negatives and so on based on the way it was written. So these have been rewritten. So the intent of the ordinance is still there. But so you can read these and then still look at the 4 columns and answer yes or no based on the way it's worded.
Is on the first line, I'm not sure that those should be, is that to be answered?
No, do not answer the first line.
Thank you. On to 1, will not, so the ordinance, this is challenging language, will not violate the spirit or intent of the ordinance.
What's being proposed will not violate the spirit or intent of the ordinance.
Thank you. And thank you. And so it will not, my answer to that is yes, it will not.
Yes.
Has the applicant provided substantial evidence that it will not violate the spirit or intent of the ordinance? My answer to that is yes.
Yes.
Has substantial evidence been provided to the contrary? My answer to that would be there has not been.
No.
And is the condition of, has that condition been met? My answer to that would be yes.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I want to go back to explain the first column again because you stated it differently this time than other times. You're looking to whether these 4, which are the general conditions and requirements in your existing code, can remain as requirements or conditions under the new law. And specifically in this case, just so you know, one of the residents did stand up and say, you got to look at these 4 conditions. Now, there's no reason you can't find that they're still applicable. And it was fascinating for me, and I think I can speak for the planner, when you did the Gamrock one, this is all we had, because that's all we had to look to for the requirements and conditions of the existing code, unlike the event barn, which has specific conditions and then plan of operation and site plan conditions. And they all were very pertinent. And you could look to whether or not there were any violations over the last 40 years or any complaints of the 4 family and things like that. So I think you did a great job when you analyzed these 4 conditions under the Gamrot CU last month and found that they were pertinent to a legal non-conforming conditional use. Not only were the only 4 we had, but they were extremely pertinent. And you could relate to them and you all made comments about why they were pertinent and how they met them and they didn't meet them. Does that make sense? And I don't know, Sean, do you have comments on that?
Yeah, that makes sense. And the only thing I'll add here is that, you know, the last part of whether or not these are pertinent or not is whether or not they're, to the extent practicable, measurable. Can you measure these conditions? And if you find that you can't really measure the conditions for the purpose of this, you'll have to debate as to whether or not that's still applicable.
But I found it fascinating that they all were very almost measurable on the Gamrot.
And because it's an existing use that was being considered, exactly.
Yeah. So it worked really well last time, and I'd share that with you just as a comparison when you're trying to. So when you went over number 1, you didn't stay. You weren't talking, Mr. Chairman, as to whether the condition they're still not pertinent and extremely important. And in fact, many of the public spoke to these four more than they spoke to anything else. That's why I think it's safe to say why you could have gotten through the specific ones very quickly. These may take some additional discussion. Does that make sense? Because I think most of the people who spoke were speaking to these. I don't want to put words in their mouth. You were all here, you heard the testimony, but this is what they were speaking to. Is that fair enough? Sean, you have anything else to add on that? Okay.
And your comment was, are they still legal under the new law, legal and applicable?
So specifically, it's related to the purpose of the ordinance based on substantial evidence, reasonable, and to the extent practicable, measurable. If it's no, then you should remove them or modify them. And I'm not saying you should remove them. I'm not at all suggesting you should remove them. I'm saying we got to think about that.
Mm-hmm.
And one of your residents even made that comment.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that the conditional use will not be contrary to public health, safety, or general welfare. I believe that is applicable. My answer would be yes.
Yes.
Has the applicant provided substantial evidence that it will not be contrary? My answer to that would be yes.
Yes.
Has there been substantial evidence to the contrary been provided? My answer to that would be no.
No.
And I believe that that condition has been met. My answer would be yes.
Yes.
Will not be hazardous, harmful, noxious, offensive, or nuisance by reason of noise, dust, smoke, odor, or other similar factor, or for any other reason cause a substantial adverse effect on the property values and general desirability of the neighborhood. I believe that is a applicable requirement. My answer would be yes.
Yes.
Based on the testimony that we heard, and the applicant has provided substantial evidence, my answer would be yes.
Yes.
Regarding evidence to the contrary, I believe that there was not substantial evidence to the contrary presented. My answer would be no.
No.
And has the condition been met? In my opinion, yes. The answer is yes.
Yes.
Except as may be specifically otherwise provided, any such use shall conform to the building location, height, and area regulations of the district in which it is located, and the approving body may require compliance with such other conditions as may be deemed necessary in the specific situation. I believe that is a applicable condition. My answer would be yes.
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 I believe that the petitioner has provided substantial evidence. My answer would be yes.
Yes.
I do not believe that there has been contrary evidence provided to the contrary. My answer would be no.
No.
And I believe that that condition has been met. My answer would be yes.
Yes.
On to 5 of 6. The following are specific conditions from the town planner staff report not previously addressed on the specific conditional use criteria for an event venue 13.2.9, sub 29 on page 2 of this worksheet. Unless modified to be more restrictive, the town Waukesha standard approval conditions are also not included but listed in the staff report. The conditional use approval shall require that only one event may take place at a time and only one event will take place per day. Is this a applicable requirement? My answer to that would be yes.
Yes.
Has the applicant provided substantial evidence that only one event will take place per day and one at a time? My answer would be yes.
Yes.
There has not been, in my opinion, evidence to the contrary supplied. My answer would be no.
No.
And I believe that condition has been met. My answer would be yes.
Yes.
The conditional use approval shall require a minimum of 97 off-street parking sites. I believe that is an applicable requirement. My answer would be yes.
Yes.
I believe that this petitioner has provided more than 97 off-street parking spots. My answer would be yes.
Yes.
I do not believe there's any contrary evidence to say that he hasn't provided those. My answer would be no.
No.
And I believe that condition is met. My answer would be yes.
Yes.
The conditional use shall reflect the hours of operation as Friday and Saturday, 10 a.m. to 12 a.m., and Sunday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 11 p.m., with DJ performances ending at least 30 minutes prior to closing. Guests shall vacate the premises, including the parking lot, by closing time. That is an applicable requirement. In my opinion, my answer would be yes.
Yes.
Has the applicant provided substantial evidence that those would be their hours? My answer would be yes.
Yes.
Has there been substantial evidence to the contrary provided? My answer would be no.
No.
And I believe that that condition has been met. My answer would be yes.
Yes.
The conditional use approval shall limit the maximum number of guests to 150 and the number of staff to 40 for any event. That is an applicable requirement. My answer would be yes.
Yes.
The petitioner has testified to that effect. My answer is yes, he has provided substantial evidence.
Yes.
I do not believe there's any substantial evidence to the contrary on that issue provided. My answer would be no.
No.
And in my opinion, the condition has been met. My answer would be yes.
Yes.
The conditional use approval shall require at minimum one person will be designated as security staff at each event. It is an applicable requirement. My answer is yes.
Yes.
The petitioner has testified that he would provide that. My answer would be yes.
Yes.
I don't believe there's any substantial evidence to the contrary been provided. My answer would be no.
No.
And I believe that condition has been met. My answer is yes.
Yes.
The conditional use approval shall permit beverages to be sold or served by the owner-operator of the venue or a professional catering service. All serving of alcohol beverages shall cease at least 1/2 hour prior to an event ending. A liquor license must be obtained from the town of Waukesha prior to serving alcoholic beverages on the subject property. That is an applicable requirement. My answer is yes.
Yes.
Has the petitioner provided substantial evidence to that condition? My answer is yes.
Yes.
I do not believe any substantial evidence to the contrary has been provided. My answer would be no.
No.
And I believe that condition has been met. My answer is yes.
Yes.
Conditional use approval shall require that no guest vehicle remain on the premises for a period exceeding 24 consecutive hours. This is an applicable condition. My answer is yes.
Yes.
Has the applicant provided substantial evidence that he will take that into consideration and comply with that? My answer is yes.
Yes.
There's been no evidence to the contrary provided. In my opinion, my answer is no.
No.
And I believe that condition has been met.
Yes.
The conditional use approval shall require the petitioner to complete and submit to the town of Waukesha a signed document within 1 week of each event attesting to compliance with the permit requirements and conditions. The document shall be prepared by the town of Waukesha and require the following information: the type of event. Was it a wedding, a fundraiser, a conference, a birthday, etc.? The number of guests and the staff attending, description of how sound levels generated by the event were ensured not to exceed 75 decibels at the property line, the hours of event including time of last call for alcoholic beverage and also the end of DJ or music, the names of designated security persons for each event, and assurance for compliance with all the requirements and conditions for the event venue. I believe this is an applicable requirement, and I believe it has been met. My answer is yes to A.
Yes.
I believe the applicant has provided substantial evidence. My answer to that would be yes.
Yes.
I do not believe contrary evidence has been provided.
No.
And has that condition been met? My answer would be yes.
Yes.
On to page 6.
Sean, do you want to walk through the condition and what you intended by the different boxes?
Sure. So at this point, those are all of the specific conditions for the event venue, and you haven't answered no to any of the particular conditions. So you don't have to deny it outright because they didn't meet or couldn't meet a specific condition. So at this point, someone would make a motion based on either A, motion to approve, or B, motion to deny. If you make a motion to approve, you'd read the first sentence, and there's 3 boxes that will come after it. The first box isn't applicable because we didn't make any changes to any of those specific conditions, but the second 2 would be applicable. So I guess as I mentioned, it's time, if someone wants to make a motion, now would be the time.
I would move to grant the conditional use order for the event venue in this form presented by the town of Waukesha planner, subject to the following. And the applicant has agreed to meet all the conditions and requirements specified by the town of Waukesha. And that is my motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Could we add and place it in final form consistent with the town?
Yeah, the third would need to be also,
Well,
not the modified portion,
Not the
yes.
modified.
And that's the reason I didn't include that, is because you've got modify in there. So if we strike modify,
It's directed
So,
to draft, yeah.
I would modify that to include that the town of Waukesha staff is directed to draft the conditional use order and place it in final form consistent with the town of Waukesha's discussion. And I'd make that amendment. And Commissioner Ramirez, is that acceptable to you?
Yes.
And this is a recommendation to the.
This is a recommendation to the board. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And on to the town board action. We can, if we want to do that now. No, it's not. We can take it out of order and adjourn the plan commission, that's fine. If there's no objections, we'll adjourn the plan commission. Huh? I don't think we need to. Do we need to call the other members back for adjournment?
Sure.
Okay. Commissioner Fisher and Commissioner Stigler, if you want to come on back up and we'll adjourn the plan commission. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Let the record reflect that they both have come back to the table after sitting in the audience.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Can I ask a question? With the attorney first. Is that appropriate? If we wanted to, if there was an idea here that we wanted to put a moratorium on future conditional uses until such time that we could study the ordinances to make sure that something like this doesn't come about again, does that come from the plan commission or does that come from the town board?
Well, ultimately, that would come from the town board. The question is whether or not the town could place a moratorium on conditional uses till they've had a chance to review their code. We have given advice to all of our clients that moratoriums are not widely received by the courts. If you do a moratorium, you have to have it a very limited period of time, as short as necessary. You have to show good faith that you're using every effort to modify the code as quickly as possible, like calling special meetings, putting the committee together, working diligently to do it. And in most instances, we also recommend that you have to have an appeal process where somebody could come in and say, I'd like a waiver from the moratorium. So that being said, I just wanted to tell you that, you know, because courts don't like moratoriums, those are the three things that we recommend as a minimum you take into consideration if you're going to do a moratorium. If you say we're going to do a moratorium on conditional uses for the next 2 years, I don't think a court will uphold it. Okay. Many of the communities are repealing most of their conditional uses as a short-term fix. Okay, McGuanago just did it. A couple others are looking at it, and then they're rewriting the code while there are no or very few conditional uses still in the code. So that's a much safer way to accomplish what you want to accomplish, is you just eliminate them for a short period of time and then bring them back when you have them spelled out the way you want. Some conditional uses should probably become permitted uses. Some conditional uses should probably go away, and some conditional uses should remain conditional uses with a great deal of more thought to what the recommendation or what the requirements and the conditions are. So I want to tell you there's another tool other than a moratorium, which is a more legal tool, and it's amazing how quickly Summit's in the middle of doing it, repealing a lot of them, and then bringing them back as they rewrite them. And I told you McGuanago's already done that, and they're almost done rewriting them even, because there's a long story, but they were just about finished rewriting their entire code after a 2 to 3 year process. They were just ready to adopt it, and this came down. So they sent it back to the same committee, and the committee's been meeting twice a week or something to get it done. And now we're going to finish the code. So those are two tools that communities are currently use. The recommendation would come from the Planning Commission, but it need not to. The action would be a town board action. It's a long answer to a short question, but I had to give you the full story.
No, I appreciate that. I guess I don't know what the procedure was, but I was aware of McGuanago redoing theirs, and I think Delafield's also.
Town of Delafield put a short-term moratorium in place.
Also, so I was just wondering what.
You could just ask that this be placed on the next agenda.
That's what was my next question. Does it have to be agendized and request the agenda for that?
Absolutely.
I so do. Request the agenda. Be agendized.
It's a town board issue, not a plan commission.
Well, it could be
You
put
just
on
said
the
it
Plan
was.
Commission for a recommendation to the town board, Or if the town board wanted to bring it up at their own meeting in 2 weeks, they could. So, but you could just say, it's not a motion, it's a request that the issue of how to deal with the new law is placed on the next agenda. Is that fair enough?
That's exactly what I'm after. I guess this law came about and kind of put everything upside down here, and I'd like to get it clarified and adjust our ordinances to meet the new
Well, I
law.
respectfully disagree that the legislature put it in place so that these things couldn't happen. But nonetheless, we really shouldn't be discussing it because it's not.
I'm not
agendized.
discussing it. I'm asking for it to be agendized.
Fair enough. So we can discuss that later. Is there a motion for adjournment? And a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The Plan Commission is adjourned, and can we take a couple of minutes? And we'll be back shortly. Go. We are back on the record, and we are on 10C.
Mr. Chairman, I would ask again if I might that the record would reflect and the minutes would reflect that I am leaving my seat here at the town board table of my own volition and taking a seat in the audience for reasons previously explained. And I'm doing that at 7:36 p.m. or thereabouts.
All right, gentlemen, you've all sat through this once, through the Plan Commission. Do you want to take them one at a time or in groups? For instance, on the first page 2, 1 through 5, then 1 through 7. What is your flavor?
I don't have an issue in doing it in groups, provided we have an issue or a comment or such that we discuss it as we go.
Supervisor Wolf? Supervisor Durr? Well, if there's an objection, we'll take them one at a time.
That's fine.
Okay,
Just the comment, if I could, Mr. Chairman.
please.
I know there's been some controversy as to whether or not what we're doing is legal, and there was a request that our attorney and our planner rendered an opinion on that. And I know I received a personal and confidential reply from our attorney as well as the one from the planner. And just to be clear, and I know Supervisor Durr was specific about it, there is nothing in those opinions that shows that what we're doing has any issue, correct?
if we're gonna make that a public document, then yes, that is correct.
Whether or not it's a public document doesn't matter, but the opinion came across, right?
And more specifically, it said that this process is absolutely legal and does fit into Wisconsin Statute 661002, 1001.
Very good.
More specifically.
Just wanted to be clear.
Fair enough. Thank you. Okay. First set, specific conditional use criteria for an event venue, section 13.2-9 sub 29. First question, an event venue is a location, i.e. premise, lot, building, and or structure which is rented to third parties for events, weddings, fundraisers, meetings, conferences, birthday celebrations, and or anniversaries. Is this condition applicable? My answer to that would be yes.
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 Okay.
Yes.
Has the applicant provided substantial evidence that it has been met? My answer would be yes.
Yes.
And has there been substantial evidence to the contrary to provided? My answer would be no.
No.
And has the condition been met? My answer to that would be yes.
Yes.
Sections 1 through 5. You've all read them. I don't think I'm going to take them, read them all one at a time again. My answer for 1 through 5 is the condition requirement applicable. My answer to all 5 would be yes.
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 Has the applicant provided substantial evidence that those conditions have been met? My answer would be yes.
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 Has substantial evidence to the contrary been provided? My answer would be no.
No.
And is the condition met to all 5? My answer would be yes.
Yes.
An event venue is allowed in any zoning district subject to the following. 1 through 7, if there's no objection, yes, I believe those are all applicable requirements. My answer
You have to take number 1 separate.
number 1 shall be submitted. Oh, you're right. My apologies. The location, building, and site plan of operation shall be submitted for approval per section 13.2.4. If we would turn over to page 3, there are 6 criteria. Are the conditions applicable? My answer to all 6 would be yes.
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 The applicant has provided substantial evidence. My answer to all 6 would be again yes.
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 I'm not convinced on that, and let me explain before we move on.
Please.
Part of it is saying that stability of property values, prevent impairment or depreciation of property values. I'm not convinced that substantial evidence has been shown on that, or that contrary evidence hasn't been substantial on that. I'm somewhat torn on that one, and goes on to say that the intent of these principles and standards that it conforms to. I'm torn whether or not the stability of the property values and the depreciation of the property values is fully proven. That's my dilemma.
Okay.
We need to establish a protocol, and this is good because you need to have this discussion. That's very important. So at this point, if one of the persons was of a mind, and I'm not putting words in anybody's mouth, to say that they don't believe X has been met by the applicant, they would make that motion. You'd see if it was seconded. If it's not seconded, it died. But at least the comment is reflected in the minutes, like it has been. And then, of course, if it's seconded, and then it's discussed and it's voted on. I don't know of any other way to do it. I mean, that's just the fairest way to do it. But you don't have to make a motion. You can just make the comment that you have the concern. The next step to raise it would be to make the motion and see if there was a second. Does that make sense, Mr. Supervisor?
It does.
But you can raise it and say, I don't want to make a, okay, this planner has a comment.
If I could just clarify one thing. So the page that we're on now is the site plan and plan of operation criteria.
Right.
These are the criteria that you look toward to see what's physically being built and how it's being, and how the specific use is being operated is going to impact property values and so on that you mentioned. So we're not necessarily talking about the specific use as an event venue, but how the buildings are laid out, what the architecture looks like, how their proposed operations are going to be, the number of guests, et cetera, that's all fair game as part of this, but the event venue itself as a use in the property is probably the general conditions that talk about general welfare and so on page 4 might get more to that. This is more as to whether or not they're meeting the architectural standards, the landscaping standards, the lighting standards, et cetera. And by meeting those, they're benefiting the general health, safety, welfare, and so on and so forth. So not necessarily the event venue itself here, but just how the site is being laid out. So that doesn't mean I'm trying to change your mind. I just wanted you
Sure.
to have what the intent of this particular page is supposed to be.
Well, I'm not going to make a motion on that, but the comments that I made is where I'll leave it.
Fair enough. I think I heard 3 yeses and 1 no, which would mean that that column, those are a yes in column A.
So, Mr. Chairman, can we take these 6 separately, please?
Sure. The site plan application per 13.2.4 sub C is complete and meets the intent of the ordinance. Is this a condition that is applicable? My answer would be yes.
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 The site plan, the plan of operation per 13.2.4 sub D is complete and meets the intent of the ordinance. My answer to that would be yes. It is a applicable condition.
Why aren't you going across?
Oh, because
Let's go across.
because it's been long already. Site plan application per 13.2.4 sub C is complete and meets the intent of the ordinance. Has a petitioner provided substantial evidence? My answer would be yes.
Yes.
I'm not so sure on that one, again, for the same reasons.
Okay. It's still a yes. We've got 3 out of 4. Has substantial evidence been to the contrary provided? My answer to that would be no.
No.
And has the condition been met? And my answer to that would be yes.
So was Supervisor was Supervisor Radke a no on B?
I am.
Okay, thank you. And so then for C,
Would be a yes.
okay, thank you.
4D, has the condition been met? In my opinion, yes.
Yes.
And Supervisor Radke, you are a,
I'm a no on that one.
thank you. Plan of operation per 13.2.4D is complete, meets the intent of the ordinance. This is applicable. My answer is yes.
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 Applicant has provided substantial evidence. My answer is yes.
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 Has there been substantial evidence to the contrary? My answer would be no.
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 And is the condition been met? My answer would be yes.
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 3, general architectural principles and criteria as established 13-2-4 sub E and F are met. It is applicable. My answer is yes.
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 Has the applicant provided substantial evidence? My answer would be yes.
Yes.
Has there been any evidence to the contrary been provided? My answer would be no.
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 And has the condition been met? My answer would be yes.
Yes.
Landscape standards requirements per 13-2-4 sub G are met. It is an applicable requirement. My answer is yes.
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 Has substantial evidence to the, been provided by the applicant? My answer is yes.
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 Has there been substantial evidence to the contrary? My answer would be no.
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 And has this condition been met? My answer would be yes.
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 Exterior lighting standards per 13.2.4 sub H are met. This is applicable. My answer is yes.
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 And has the applicant provided substantial evidence? My answer is yes.
Yes.
Has there been evidence to the contrary provided? My answer would be no.
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 And has the condition been met? My answer is yes.
Yes.
Exterior site usage standards per 13.2.4 sub I are met. My answer is yes, it is applicable.
Yes.
And has the applicant provided substantial evidence to that issue?
Yes.
My
Yes.
answer is yes. Has there been substantial evidence to the contrary? My answer is no.
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 And is the condition been met? My answer is yes.
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 Okay, back to page 2. there's no objection, can we take 2 through 7 together?
We can.
Sure.
Can we pause for a moment, please?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Items 2 through 7, are these conditions applicable? My answer to all 6 are yes.
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 Has the applicant provided substantial evidence? My answer to all 6 again would be yes.
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 Well, there's actually 7 there, Chairman.
Well, there's,
We already did one.
I'm sorry. Okay, my mistake.
7 minus 1. Thank you.
Did we get an answer?
Did we get an answer on those?
Yes.
Yes.
And Supervisor Radke?
My only concern is the 75 decibels at the property line. I know that there's been substantial evidence showing that it's measured inside. I believe it was at 85 decibels. But there is no measurement, and I guess I'm just discussing this. I not necessarily have an issue with that, but there's really no way to measure it, as we discussed at the last meeting, directly at the property line, but it's assumed if you measure it at the source that it's going to dissipate by the time it hits the property line.
So I had thoughts about this also, and went back and reviewed the report that the petitioner had provided from the expert. And the reason that I became comfortable with this is because in the expert's opinion and his explanation of how the 85 decibels inside, number 1, why it's limited to 85 decibels, and number 2, how it's essentially by the time you get to the property line, going through the building material that the petitioner will be using, along with the distance from the building to the property line. That's how I came to be comfortable with the fact that 85 inside becomes 75 outside, and I consider that to be substantial evidence. Had the same thoughts, so I just thought.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that because it's not going to get louder as it goes outside. I just don't know if, I guess I struggled with that, but I've overcome that.
All right.
So you're a yes?
I'm a yes.
All right.
All right. Has substantial evidence to the contrary been provided? My answer to those 6 are no.
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 And has the condition been met? My answer to all 6 is yes.
Yes.
The term event venue does not apply to private clubs, private commercial recreation facilities, theaters, dance halls, and other amusement parks or restaurants, amusement places, I'm sorry. Is this condition applicable? My answer would be yes.
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 Has the applicant provided substantial evidence that he's not a restaurant, amusement place, dance hall, theater? My answer would be yes.
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 Has substantial evidence to the contrary been provided? My answer would be no.
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 And is the condition been met? My answer is yes.
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 Thank you. On to general conditions, use criteria. There are 4 items here. Is there any objection to taking them at once?
I would like to take them individually, please.
Very good. The conditional use will not violate the spirit or intent of the ordinance. I believe that is applicable. My answer is yes.
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 Has the applicant provided substantial evidence? My answer is yes.
Yes.
No.
And has substantial evidence to the contrary been provided? My answer is no.
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 Yes.
And in my opinion, the condition has been met. My answer is yes.
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 That the conditional use will not be contrary to public health, safety, or general welfare. I believe it is applicable. My answer is yes.
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 Has the applicant provided substantial evidence? My answer is yes.
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 Has evidence been provided to the contrary? My answer is no.
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 And I believe that the condition has been met. My answer is yes.
Yes.
Will not be harmful, hazardous, noxious, offensive, or a nuisance by reason of noise, dust, smoke, odor, other similar factor, or for any other reason cause a substantial adverse effect on the property values and general desirability of the neighborhood. Is this a applicable requirement? My answer is yes.
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 Has the applicant provided substantial evidence? My answer is yes.
No.
No.
Well, you're going to have to give your reasons then, because this could kill, you know, you're gonna have to go back into the record and give us the substantial evidence or why you feel they haven't met the substantial evidence. Well, we can go through the rest of the column and see how the vote comes out, I guess, at the end.
Has substantial evidence to the contrary been provided? My answer is no.
No.
Yes.
No.
And has the condition been met? My answer to that question is yes, the condition has been met.
Yes.
No.
On C. Okay, just a minute, please. I just want to record something. Well, the answer to D has to do with how we all answered in A, B, and C. So it was unanimous for A, it was 2-2 on B, and it was 3-1 on C. So given the fact that it's 2-2 on B, how do we answer D yes? Am I explaining myself okay? I mean, essentially,
I don't have those numbers the same as you, but that's
okay, well then let's go through them.
No,
so we all voted A for yes, right?
Yes.
Okay, and Duran Radke voted no for B.
Correct.
That means Merrick and Wolf voted yes. And then, excuse me, I had this backwards. A substantial? No. And then 3 of them voted yes for have substantial evidence to the contrary. No, 3 of them voted no, excuse me. I just have that backwards. And I voted no to has substantial evidence been provided.
Contrary evidence.
Contrary, excuse me. Has substantial evidence contrary been provided? And I voted no.
But Jim voted yes.
Okay, and Jim voted yes, thank you. Okay. So given the fact that we have a non-majority on B, can we answer D yes? I just want to make sure we're clear on what we're doing, that's all.
Well, look at the explanation for D. Does the town of Waukesha find, based on the substantial evidence presented, that the applicant meets or has agreed to meet this condition or requirement?
Okay, so let's just answer individually D. That's a good way to do it.
And my answer to D is yes.
Mine is no. I'm still struggling with the noise and the dust. I know we talked about the noise part of it and the measuring of it from inside, but and maybe I'm misinterpreting this, and I guess that's where I'm looking for some guidance. Are we merely measuring the noise as we talked about from the inside? Because that's how the specific sections read. We're not necessarily measuring, nor can we measure anything at the property line, irregardless of just the music. So is that a reasonable disagreement to it, that there could be more or different noise that could be created at the property line?
Yes, absolutely. And I'll give you, for instance, I have a simple decibel meter. When the frogs were in peak mating season a few weeks ago. They were 80 decibels in my backyard. A lawnmower was 85 decibels. There's all kinds of things that are gonna pop you up over 75 decibels that are normal recurring sounds all around us.
Agreed.
I just don't see that that's unreasonable to keep it at 75, and I don't think it's gonna be a problem. You're a long way from property lines. You've got a heavily insulated building. The building is not built in the way that you are constructing a house. It's made out of insulated panels, much like the Sticks facility. Incredibly quiet and sound absorbent. I don't see it as an issue.
But are we even looking at measuring anything beyond the amplified music? I mean, we're not really stating that anywhere, so
Well, what
am
else
I
would you
off
think
base
about?
by even thinking that?
What else
I
would
don't
you
know.
measure?
I'm just asking, is it something to measure from, you know, vehicles to the people outside to any of that is beyond the music part of it? That's just the part that I'm struggling with.
Sure. I also walked out to Highway 59 and had the decibel meter with me. And while trucks are going by in traffic,
Sure.
you're well above 80 decibels. Just from normal road noise.
So when I reread this one again, will not be hazardous, harmful, noxious, offensive, or a nuisance by reason of noise, dust, smoke, odor, or other similar factor. Or for any other reason cause a substantial adverse effect on the property values and general desirability of the neighborhood. I would go back and answer B. Has the applicant provided substantial evidence that those things will not happen? I would answer that yes. I had previously answered that no.
All right, then we get back to D. My answer to D is yes.
So then let's take C again. Has
Okay.
substantial evidence to the contrary been provided? I would answer that no.
Okay. That's what we had you down as.
Okay,
I'm still the one at yes on that.
okay.
Okay. Now I'm just curious, and what substantial evidence for those items was presented to the contrary?
But my point, Mr. Chairman, if I may, is we now have a majority of yes on A, B, and C.
Yes, I understand.
Okay.
Well, let's get to D. My answer to D is yes. Jim was a no. Supervisor Wolf is a yes.
And I'm a yes.
Okay, but I'm just for my own edification. What substantial evidence? What reports? What experts? Who with property value expertise presented any substantial evidence? That's what I'm curious about, because again, there was a lot of testimony about feelings and emotions.
Sure.
But something evidentiary.
That's a tough one to truly narrow down. I mean, we had some written, I guess it's more opinion than anything, as to what could happen to the property values directly adjacent to it. And again, I'm stuck on the noise part of it, whether or not that's something that we should add in there to be another measurable item at a property line as opposed to just at the source. That's just the part that I struggle with.
Fair enough. It was just a question.
I mean, for example, you know, there were several parties going on with the 4th of July festivities. And most anybody, if you're standing outside and anybody's got any kind of music going on, you can hear that, whether it's next door to you or a block or two away or 40 acres away. I didn't have anything that I would consider offensive that I could hear, but you can certainly hear things. And that's the part that I struggle with. Could be as sitting on their back deck with a boom box.
Nothing offensive you heard though, so Madonna wasn't playing anywhere.
No, but it was the same song over and over, it appeared, and that was
Let's move on.
obnoxious.
On to number 4. Except as may be specifically otherwise provided, will any such use shall conform to the building height, location, area regulations in the district which it is located, and the approving body may require in compliance with such other conditions deemed necessary in the specific situation. Is it applicable? Yes, my answer is.
Yes.
Yes.
Has the applicant provided substantial evidence? My answer is yes.
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 Has there been substantial evidence to the contrary? My answer would be no.
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 And has this condition been met? My answer would be yes.
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 On to, are we done already? Where'd we go? Yeah, page 5, sorry. Is there any objection to taking these 2, 4, 6, 8 at the same time?
No, but if we can just pause for a moment, please.
Certainly.
Okay, thank you. No objection.
Thank you. Is the condition requirement applicable to this application? My answer would be yes.
Yes.
To all 8.
But I do have a comment on that, excuse
Sure.
me. On 2O, I just want to be clear that we're not granting any liquor license here today.
Certainly not.
You know, that's something totally separate from this particular meeting.
Yes. Has the applicant provided substantial evidence? My answer to all 8 would be yes.
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 But again, I'm going back to the same thing. Description of how sound levels are ensured to not exceed 75 decibels at the property line. You know, we're talking about the sound levels of the music, and I think we went over that enough. We don't need to rehash that. So from that perspective, then I'm fine. So I don't believe that the music part of it will be beyond 75 decibels. In fact, I'm surprised that it's that low from inside.
Thank you. Has the applicant provided substantial evidence? My answer to all 8 is again yes.
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 Has substantial evidence to the contrary been provided? My answer to all 8 is no.
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 And has the condition been met? My answer to all 8 would be yes.
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 On to motion, and I'm gonna make the motion, move to grant the conditional use for the event venue in the form presented by the Town of Waukesha planner, subject to the following. The applicant has agreed to meet all the conditions and requirements specified by the Town of Waukesha. The Town of Waukesha staff is directed to draft the conditional use order and place it in its final form consistent with the Town of Waukesha's discussion. And I so move. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, just, you know, in reading this, it says if the town board answers no in column D for any condition, must deny. I can't vote for it, unfortunately, based on what I had mentioned previously.
Okay. Anything else?
That's all.
All in favor?
Well, yeah, one other thing. But based on that same analysis, I can justify voting yes, because in my opinion, the category that I voted no on
further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Motion carries. Continuation of the board meeting 12, discussion and possible action on Town of Waukesha Code Title 2, Chapter 3, Section 6, Sub B of the Town of Waukesha Code, regular meetings of the town board. Basically, we're asking, do you like this? Oh, I'm sorry, Supervisor Fisher's returned at 8:08. You're so quiet back there, I didn't realize you were still here. Do we want to keep this format of the meeting that we have with the Plan Commission and Board together? I like it. I think it gives a smoother, faster meeting.
I like it.
I like it.
I find it to be very efficient.
Supervisor Fisher?
I don't much care one way or the other.
In council, do we need a motion and action on this, or can we just left this way?
I'll defer to Kathy. I think what she's looking for is direction while she finishes the codification.
That's correct.
So it's just, if you have consensus, you're gonna vote on it. When we bring the code back, you know, it's in the code differently, and so she's gonna now bring it back with this change in the code. These are all policy decisions that you're just giving her direction on. So if there's discussion and direction, you'll get another kick at it.
Bottom line, she has to revise the ordinance. I mean, we can't approve this tonight. It has to be an ordinance revision.
Yes, sir.
13, discussion and possible action on Town of Waukesha Code Title 7, Chapter 9 of the Town of Waukesha Code, amusement parks and transient public entertainment. Madam Clerk?
As I stated in our discussion paperwork, we're going through the codification, and there were areas where our legal analysis one was questioning if this was obsolete. After speaking with Attorney Macy, we thought it was a policy decision, and we would bring it to you to see if we should keep it the way it is in the code, or if we should, if you felt it was obsolete, and delete.
I guess the question I would have is what happens if somebody comes forward with a request for amusement park or transient public entertainment if we don't have a provision in the ordinance to consider it?
It would have to become a conditional use someplace, wouldn't it? No?
We just wouldn't be regulating it. Isn't that what the gentleman from Florida, the attorney is from Florida, and he looks at these on a national, and he just questioned whether or not you still wanted to do this regulation. And Kathy, help us out here, is he recommending, and I'm pulling it up here, I thought I had a hard copy here, but is he recommending we eliminate the whole thing, or just some clarification?
Well, if it was obsolete, he recommended deletion. But if you were going to keep it in, he had some other changes to it. So, but which I can put in those changes. But I just wanted to see if you thought it was necessary to keep.
Why would it be construed to be obsolete if somebody might come through with a request to do such a thing? I mean, Attorney Macy said we wouldn't regulate it. I mean, we simply wouldn't willy-nilly allow it, would we?
I think some of our conversation, Dan and I were going through this, and some of our conversation about the transient or carnivals, we were thinking about the carnivals that happen at churches, or carnivals that even happen, you know, our pancake breakfast, or the family, if we had any kind of carnivals, that type of thing. So we were just trying to see if this was still something that you were interested in.
This isn't transient merchants, Kathy, correct?
No.
We'd still
it's
be
not merchants.
regulating peddlers, transient merchants, and things like that. So we started on the wrong foot, we gave you the wrong impression. There is a section in your code called the public entertainment, amusement parks, and transient public entertainment. I don't know if that would have been old road shows, you know, or wagon shows or whatever, but I think he's saying the trend in the industry is that no one's regulating these anymore. And he's wondering if you would. And when we talked briefly at staff, Kathy and I, we didn't think of a time that anybody had done one, but maybe you're familiar with a church group that, but if they do, they've never come in and got a permit for it.
Right now, we
So
don't do permitting.
in other communities, such as the city of Waukesha, when a church wants to hold a festival where a carnival is present, wouldn't that be something that, if it were to occur here, that this would apply?
Yes.
Okay, then I'm not interested in getting rid of it.
I agree. I mean, if we're not going to be able to regulate it, why would you get rid of it?
Right.
I guess we'd be receptive if this Dan guy, if he has some suggestions for changes to make to it. I mean, I'd be receptive to listening to those, but I don't think we want to be in a situation. I mean, we have several churches in the town of Waukesha here. They basically decide they want to run a week-long carnival or that type of thing. Did the town to be in a position, say, well, we don't regulate that, do whatever you darn well please and have the thing run till 3 a.m. in the morning or whatever? I mean, I don't think we want to be put in that position.
We'll
at
make
all.
the changes that they suggest. A couple of them are changes because our current code states that you must be a citizen and
A citizen of what?
cannot be issued to. Right now it says, I know it's giving us citizenship. As the citizenship is unconstitutional, he says we should revise it and provide the permit cannot be issued to an illegal alien.
City of Waukesha regulates carnival, circuses, fairs, boxing and wrestling exhibitions, traveling shows, and any other similar or related type of activity. Just so I pulled it up quickly to check. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to have any responsibility for the checking the safety or setup or any of that. You have to make sure that we get out of that business. You could know about it, and as Trustee Fisher or Supervisor Fisher indicated, you can regulate hours and things by it. You know, you want to know that the carnival's in town. I mean, Dousman's had, I don't want to go into great detail, but they've had issues, you know, and they have regulations too. So, but I just want to warn you, we've taken that out of fireworks, we've taken that out of all kinds of stuff because of a major lawsuit, and they managed to get over the $50,000 cap because of an ordinance that set regulations, and they didn't check to make sure those regulations were being applied to.
So our qualifications for the amusement park permit: no permit shall be granted to operate an amusement park within the town to any person not of good moral character, a full citizen of the United States and of this state. And that's what he's suggesting. We remove a full citizen of the United States and this state, and the permit cannot be, we can put in there, permit cannot be issued to an illegal alien. That was his only,
I mean, you don't have to be a citizen of the United States to run a carny in the town as far as I'm concerned.
I think it's not to run, it's to pull the permit.
yeah.
See, what you want to pull the permit is you want a responsible person that
Sure.
you can go back to if there's problems.
Right.
You know, and some of the problems have been very serious.
Oh, I'm
well
sure.
Imagine. I don't want to go into detail on them, but you know, there have been problems with carnies, and that, I don't want to denigrate them, but there have been issues. But I think you've given us our guidance. It's you're going to keep it, but follow his recommendations. We'll show you a red line when we bring it back, so you'll see what the changes are,
Perfect.
and you'll be able to discuss those at that time.
Yep.
I mean, I think, and I haven't read that in its detail, but I mean, I think one of the things I want to look at that if we're going to be revising things is that permit is that issued administratively, or is it issued by an action of the town board or whatever? And I'm not expecting to answer that tonight, but I mean, as long as we're to discuss it, I think there's a whole host of things there we need to look at. That doesn't need to be answered tonight, but we got to spend a little bit of time and thought about
Permit
it.
therefore shall be granted by the town board.
Thank you. Same thing, this is part of codification, discussion and possible action pertaining to Town of Waukesha Code Title 8, Chapter 5, Section 851, Sewage Sludge Disposal.
Attorney Macy, can you help me with that one?
Yeah, sewer sludge itself, in a major lawsuit between Lisbon and Sussex, was after the lawsuit, the state stepped in and said, we're going to regulate sludge disposal. We can't have every community. Lisbon passed an ordinance that Sussex couldn't put it on any farmers' fields in Lisbon. I'm simplifying it. And the state stepped in and said, if every community in the neighboring state to a developed municipality that needs a place to spread it passes an ordinance, we're not going to ever be able to get rid of the sludge. So the state's taking it over. Now, manure spreading is a hot topic right now that the city of Delafield, the village of Neshota, and we have passed ordinances on manure spreading, but sludge has been superseded by the state. And that's all the guy's pointing out to you, is that he was pretty sure that the state regulates sludge disposal, and so you can do manure, but you can't do sludge.
That may make some sense, but I guess I would like to see how documentation, something how the state does regulate that. I'd like to, at least for knowledge purposes, if we're going to eliminate that, I'd like to know what they do or don't do.
The other portion was, we were gonna put in there, if you decided you, wanted to get rid of the, requirement in our code, that the permit must be sent and received by the clerk treasurer's office within 72 hours prior to the, permit's use. So at least we would be aware of it, 3 days in advance. So that was a suggestion. So are we saying we want to leave it in until we understand what the state regulation is? Or do you want us to take it out during codification and
For me, I'd like to see the information. I'd like to know when we say the state regulates it, is this some arm of the DNR or something? Do they pass that authority through Waukesha County? I'd like to know what Waukesha County Park and Planning, Division of Environmental Health has to say about it, or what or not. I mean, I'm not prepared to make a decision as to whether I think it should be removed or not unless we know and understand what stands behind
we
it.
can, if there's any real concern, we can keep it in. We just won't make any changes to it. We'll just keep it in. And
I'm
if
saying,
in the future
let me try it
we wanna
again.
take it out.
All I'm saying is I'm not prepared to make a decision on that tonight. Get the information and show us if the state is regulating this. I'd like to know what those regulations are. What do they do for enforcement? Is the county involved or whatever? I'm not prepared to make a decision or offer an opinion on that until we see what backs it up.
Attorney Macy, so the state regulates it. Can we be more restrictive? Or is the state regulated and we have nothing to say?
We'll look it up. Let's get a copy of what the current state statutes and administrative code regulations are. That'll answer the question, Mr. Chairman, as to whether we have any authority in this area whatsoever.
Very good.
So we'll do our homework.
Thank you.
Have we issued any permits for that?
No.
Do you know?
Never have.
On to 15, operator's license for Kurt Somolinski, working at the Legends of Merrill Hills. Is there a motion for approval?
I'll make a motion we approve the liquor license for Kurt Somolinski at Merrill Hills.
And a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All, motion carries. Let's take a 10-minute break. Motion for adjournment?
I'll make a motion we adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We are adjourned.